Hello everyone. I received some feedback from my last video where I was informed that it looked like I was recording in a dungeon. So I have relocated my recording location to a place that hopefully is a little bit more pleasant to watch and listen to. I apologize for the audio in the past couple of videos. Um, like I said, I was using a tablet camera and a tablet microphone. I was just recording every bit of audio around me. So you had my computer running, and the heater was running. It was just a real audio mess. So hopefully this one is a little more tolerable, a little more pleasant to the ears. Um, so I do apologize for that. I have relocated to a place that hopefully is a bit more suitable for recording. Now, all of you should have received your packets by now. If you haven't, it's coming in the mail, or you went to the school and got it, or it was delivered on the bus, or some one way or another. You should have all received a packet from me. The purpose of this video is I am going to go through the first portion of the slides like we would go through in class, but I'm going to do them through here. Uh, I have a paper copy of the slides that you should have in your packet. Um, I'm also going to include a link where you can get these digitally. I'm going to try to figure out a way that I can put those in the YouTube, the description of the video. So if you don't have a paper copy of the notes, you can look at them through there. And like I said, I'm going to try to keep this to how I would present material in the classroom. It's a format that you guys have gotten used to, and I'm going to try to keep that. Now, this is for my United States history class, so I'm going to put that in the title of the video as well. So if you're not in my U.S. history class, you don't have to watch this. If you want to learn more about Thomas Jefferson and his presidency, we're also going to be talking about the Louisiana Purchase, talk about Lewis and Clark a little bit about Sacagawea. So if those are things that you would be interested in, um, keep watching. But if you're a student from one of my other... Okay, so I'm going to start off with a little overview of what we have covered before, what's going to come directly before the new material that we're going to get into, and to kind of get everybody back up to speed. The Adams presidency is the last thing we were talking about. We've already been through the Revolutionary War, written the Constitution, went through the Articles of Confederation and the Adams presidency. Now, during the Adams presidency, we had a lot of turmoil. You know, we were still a young country, still had a lot of debt, um, and there was a major world event happening at that time called the French Revolution. Now, the French Revolution was essentially, they saw what we did over here and we fought back against the British and we took power back to the people. So the French people saw that and they said, well, why don't we do that too? So now France was in a real bad shape at this time. The the distance between the rich and the poor was millions of miles apart. You know, the rich were living in these lavish palaces and they had all the food they could eat. Meanwhile, the French peasants were starving in the street and dying of disease, and it was just a terrible, terrible way of living. So, uh, they decided to band together. The French people banded together, and one of the first major events was they tore down what was called the Bastille. Now, the Bastille was a prison, military base, armory, kind of all in one. And this was a giant fortress, and the French peasants tore it down. And the the French Revolution is a very violent. Yes, it is a very violent time in history. The rulers that they had issues with, they would drag them into the street and exercise a new invention called the guillotine. The guillotine is a way of very expediently getting rid of people you don't like, let's say. It was invented by a doctor, and it is a giant, if you don't know, it is a giant mechanism with a big heavy blade that is meant to cut through this part of the human body right here, very quickly. Invented by a doctor. He named it after himself. Yes, there was a person in history named Dr. Guillotine. It sounds like a supervillain to me. Okay, so we're in the middle of the French Revolution, and the French people come to America for help. They say, hey, you know how we helped you out during your revolution? How about you help us out? And this was during Washington's time in the presidency, and he said no. And this made a lot of people upset, both Americans and French. So while we turned them down their request for help, they started capturing American ships at sea for that were going to Britain. Because even though we weren't on great terms with Britain, we were still doing business with them. We were still buying and selling things. So anything that was going to Britain would be captured by the French. But anything that was going to France was going to be captured by the British. So John Jay was sent to Britain to work out some sort of a deal where Britain would stop capturing our people. They worked out what was called Jay's Treaty.
It was at this time that the phone started ringing. Sorry about that, guys.
So Jay's Treaty was an agreement between the United States and Britain. And I won't get into the specifics of it because that was the last lesson that we went over. So, but in short, it was not a very beneficial agreement for the French. It didn't include anything about France. It was just America and Britain, and that made France upset. So they were going to keep trying to capture American ships. So it leads into, well, now we have to work out a deal with France. So we sent a group of people to France, one of which was one of the Supreme Court justices at the time, John Marshall, the namesake of John Marshall High School. So we sent him and a few other people to France, and this leads into what becomes known as the XYZ Affair, and this was under the Adams presidency. The XYZ Affair was the first major political scandal in United States history. In the XYZ Affair, there were 3 French agents who John Adams referred to as X, Y, and Z, did not reveal their names, who were demanding bribes and loans before they would even meet with American diplomats. This became a huge issue. They were wanting to be bribed before they would even meet with them. This was no promise of an agreement. There was no promise of, okay, well, we'll stop messing with your sailors. It was just to talk. This is why it was such a big deal. So that became known as the XYZ Affair. Now, eventually it did end. The XYZ Affair did end without any like military conflict. They were able to work out an agreement. But between the XYZ Affair, Jay's Treaty, and a number of other things, John Adams was not a very popular president. So whenever it came time for his re-election, he did run for re-election, but he did not have the support. So the election really came down between two candidates, Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. And this was a major election, the election of 1800. And it came down to a situation that has not happened very often, if at all. There was a tie. It was a tie between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. And in the result of an electoral tie, it is decided by the House of Representatives. And the House of Representatives were tied as well. This was unheard of. This was only our second real election as far as the presidency is concerned. So this was new waters. They didn't really know what to do. So they voted 36 different times. And now on the 36th time, they were able to come to an agreement of who should be president. And they did choose Thomas Jefferson. Now, Thomas Jefferson did win the election due to the help of Alexander Hamilton. Now, this is bizarre because Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson were opposed to each other. They did not like each other. They had vastly different opinions. They hated each other for their opinions. But Alexander Hamilton looked at the two and he decided Thomas Jefferson stands for something. He has morals, he has his own ideas. Aaron Burr, on the other hand, only cares about Aaron Burr. So he went around to his colleagues and said, hey, we need to throw our support to Thomas Jefferson so that we can get somebody in the office. Aaron Burr is not a suitable candidate. Aaron Burr only cares about Aaron Burr. Aaron Burr only wanted to further his own ambitions. He did not care about the country. He is not the type of person that Washington would want. Due to this, Alexander Hamilton got his colleagues to support Thomas Jefferson, elected Thomas Jefferson. Now, this leads to a very bizarre situation for our modern day perspective. A duel. There was a duel between Alexander Hamilton and Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, and this was a duel to the death. If you've ever watched any old cowboy movies, any old westerns, you've probably seen a scene where they're staring at each other, and then they draw their guns real quick and shoot. Well, this was back in the time when that was legal. So legal that Aaron Burr, who was the vice president at the time, dueled a senator, or a representative, excuse me. And Alexander Hamilton lost the duel. Aaron Burr walked away, and Alexander Hamilton was shot dead in the street, legally, by the vice president. Bizarre. But anyway, so that leads us to where our new information is today. And we are going to talk about Jefferson and Office. Now, Jefferson changed the presidency. He had new ideas from Washington or Adams. He paid off the federal debt, he cut government spending, and he cut the whiskey tax. If you remember back, we talked about the Whiskey Rebellion. And even though the rebellion was put down by Washington, the tax was still in effect, but Jefferson, he cut that tax. And instead of a military, he relied on local militias. He wanted to put the military power back into the state and on the local level. So instead of using a national military, he relied more on local militias. So moving on, the next topic is the Louisiana Purchase. In 1803, Napoleon Bonaparte, a French military commander, planned on conquering Europe and needed money. If you're going to conquer an entire continent, you're going to need a whole lot of money to do that. And he decided the best way to get money would be to sell the Louisiana Purchase to America. He offered the Louisiana Purchase to America for the low cost of $11,250,000. Now, to you or me, that is a whole chunk of money. But if you look at the map that I have included in the notes, you will see how much land that is. That is a whole chunk of land. That is taking up parts of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 modern states. Chunks of 14 modern states are included in this. Congress immediately accepted because it more than doubled the size of the United States of America. And for only $11,250,000, you're going to double the size of your country? Heck yes, that's a great deal. So America bought it like that, of course. So That was in 1803. Now it's called the Louisiana Purchase today because parts of Louisiana were included in that. Now this was all French territory at this time. Now, it was not settled. If you remember back to earlier in the year, we talked about what the French used their land for. Mostly trade, hunting, trapping. Beaver pelts were a major commodity in Europe. They were the height of luxury. So, that was one of the major things they were after. They used it for trading and hunting, trapping. So, even though they bought all this land, didn't really include a whole lot of settlements. They had little trade posts every here and there, but nothing, there were no major cities or anything that were purchased here. So, going on to the next, it brings us to Lewis and Clark. Now, Lewis and Clark are two explorers. Jefferson sends explorers Meriwether Lewis and William Clark west into the Louisiana Territory to find a route to the Pacific Ocean. At this time, America still didn't really know how large the continent was going to be. They knew that the Pacific Ocean was over there, but they really didn't know exactly how far it was. So they send these two guys out to find it. They began following the Missouri River. Along the way, they met Sacagawea, a Shoshone woman who became their guide and interpreter. Sacagawea was a Native American woman who was a member of the Shoshone tribe. She is going to guide them. She's going to show them where to get water, where they can find food and game. They're going to along trails because they are going into unknown lands. They have no idea what they're going to find. Are they going to find a massive desert and they can't find any food there? Are they going to, is this river that they're going by, is it going to be the last source of water they're going to find for days? They don't know. So they need this guy, they need this interpreter. With Sacagawea's help, the two explorers found a route through the Rocky Mountains to the Pacific Ocean. So Lewis and Clark did find their way clear to the Pacific Ocean. Now, this is an amazing feat because they're going, like I said before, into completely unknown territory. They don't know what's on the other side of that hill. Is it going to be a big field full of vegetables and fruits that they can eat? Or are they going to wander right into a den of grizzly bears? They have no idea. So the fact that they are able to make it there and back is amazing to me. Going on to the next page here. Rising international tensions. Now, at this time, we purchased the Louisiana Territory, we explored it, but we have some issues that are going to be popping up with other countries. Okay, so moving on. For years, the Barbary States on the North African coast, Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli, had pirated Mediterranean ships. Now, these are all civilizations that are on the North African coast. It means they're bordering the Mediterranean Sea. Europeans paid tribute money to these countries so their ships wouldn't be attacked. Now, these were pirates, and they would prey on ships sailing the Mediterranean Sea, and go on their ships, plunder, kill the people there, take their stuff, and it was a really bad place to be in the world. So Europeans would pay tribute money. And what tribute money was, it was essentially like, here, take my money, don't attack me. Attack those guys. They didn't pay your tribute. Get them. Don't attack me. I'm going to pay your toll. Just please leave my ships alone. Don't steal my stuff. And that's the system that they were under. The pirates thought, well, we were going to take their stuff anyway. If they'll just give it to us willingly, we won't have to fight them. Seems like a good system for the pirates. Jefferson refuses to pay this, though. He is not going to pay pirates to not attack. And in response, Tripoli declared war on the United States. And this started the United States' first foreign military conflict. This is going to be the first war that the United States is in with a foreign country. Now, you might be thinking, well, the Revolutionary War was fought against the British. Wouldn't they be considered a foreign country? Yes, but at that time, we weren't the United States yet. So, this is going to be the first foreign military conflict. This was a mostly naval conflict and ended in 1815, and no more payments were paid by the United States. So this was a naval conflict. It was settled by ships, because, well, don't have an air force yet, because planes don't exist yet. So moving on to warfare and impressment. We're getting towards the end here, guys. In 1806, Britain was at war again with the French. The British and the French have fought all throughout history. Nowadays, they're all good, but back in history, they were constantly going back and forth at each other. Now, this conflict was spurred on by Napoleon. Napoleon was a French military commander, brilliant commander, but he wanted to control all of Europe. So, Britain declared that ships going to Europe without British licenses would be seized. So, if anybody was sending a ship to Europe and it didn't get the British stamp of approval, you were going to be seized, meaning that the soldiers were going to come on your ship and they were going to essentially arrest you. So in response to this, Napoleon says that anyone who followed Britain's system would have their ships seized. So Americans are in a situation where if they don't pay the British tax, Britain's going to seize them. But if they do pay the British tax, the French are going to seize them. So it's really not a great time to be an American sailor going to Europe, because no matter who you pay, no matter what you do, either the British or the French, one of them is going to try to arrest you. So American merchants would lose their ships and cargo either way. So this is like I said, not a great time to be a American sailor. But the British Navy was short on recruits, meaning that they were not getting as many people to join the Navy as they needed to. British sailors would often desert to American ships. They would run away from their service as a British sailor to get on board an American ship to come back to America because they're trying to escape. Britain tried to fix this with impressment, or legalized kidnapping and forced into military service. Now, this is what's going to set the stage for America's second war with Britain, which is what the next topic that we're going to get into in class is going to be. In 1807, the British warship Leopold stopped the American ship, the USS Chesapeake. When the Americans refused to comply, the Leopold opened fire, killing 3 Americans. Now in 1807, this conflict between the Leopold and the USS Chesapeake is what is going to set the stage for the second war with Britain, which is what the next lesson is going to be on. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. Like I said, this is for U.S. history. Due to some requests I got on prior videos, this is Hunter. This is Elise and I's cat. She is a brat, and it was requested that she make an appearance. So here she is. She is not loving this situation at all because she was taking a nap before I went over and got her. Yep. Okay, she's done. But that was her guest appearance. So guys, if you have any questions about anything we went over today, just leave it in a comment down below and I will respond. Because I'm sure if you have a question, I'm sure somebody else does. So I want questions. Send me your questions. Put them in the comments. I will respond to them as soon as I see them. And I hope you have a good day. See you later.